This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We are internet friends turned real-life friends who both experienced the tragic loss of our sons to sudden infant death syndrome in winter of 2021.
In the year after Aiden died, my husband and I both became unemployed. My parents divorced, and we had to move 5 times for various reasons.
And as for me, just a few weeks before my son Quinn died, my then husband had come out to me as a transgender woman and were subsequently divorcing.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot.
But as long as we're living, we will love our sons deeply and work to make sure that we live a life that makes them proud.
Welcome to As Long As I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here. Okay, so guys, this is take 2.
Take 2. We tried to record this earlier this week, and wow, was it bad.
And it was a failure.
Big
failure. It was a complete and total failure. But the idea is still to give a life update, right? That's where we're still going with this. Okay. I'll say that in the beginning, when we first started this podcast, it felt like there was so much happening every week, you know? We were moving, we were looking for jobs, you were dating someone. It just felt like the meat of life. Every time we recorded something like this, there was like something significant. And now I actually still feel like there is, but it doesn't, my life is fairly ordinary. And so sometimes it could be a little hard to realize that I'm still in the thick of it, because I'm like, oh, well, I went to work today. And then I'm so used to the chaos being chaos that I forget that it's unusual.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good way to put it. It's still pretty much just as chaotic as it was in the beginning, but I think I've gotten so used to it that I don't even really register just how chaotic it is. And every once in a while, I look back over the last couple of weeks and I think about everything that happened in the past couple of weeks, and I'm like, no wonder I'm so fucking tired all the time. I'm exhausted, Judith.
Yeah.
Every minute of the day, I'm tired.
I 100% agree. The huge things have happened in the past month, and I'm just so constantly used to living in the washing machine that I forget. So I think on Monday when we were trying to record, we weren't able to we were so like discombobulated. Yeah. We weren't able to have the perspective to say like, wow, this is something that happened that's big. So let's try again. I definitely feel like my brain is more organized today.
Me too.
It looks like your brain is more organized today. And let's give a little life update.
So update 1, I'm sick.
Well, that is true. Update 1, Alina is sick. Wait, hold on. Okay. I want to say something else, which is that I've got this question quite often, like, what is the end goal of this podcast? And so I want to just remind everyone that the reason we're doing these personal check-ins is because the goal of the podcast is to tell the story from the depths of despair back to normal life. And I feel like part of this is a story. It's like the personal narrative of our story of crawling our way out of the hole. So we're just about 2 years out, both of us. And we're trying to paint a picture of what it looks like 2 years out. And the goal of this podcast is to one day look at each other and be like, you know what? We've told our story. We're struggling with other things. The loss is not the biggest thing in our life right now. And we're back to a place where we just feel like life is normal. So before we dive into what's been going on, Alina, where would you say you are on the timeline of depths of despair to happier ever after? Like, where are you?
That's a great question. Wow, we are in such better shape this recording than last time. Like, this is so much more coherent already.
I know.
It's interesting because I think I feel minute to minute, and like I look back over the last week, which again, we're not doing our updates yet, but like this past week was really challenging for me. So I still feel like I'm at the bottom in some ways, but I can look back and I can have the perspective that actually I'm quite far along on the journey.
I agree.
Toward happier ever after. This time 2 years ago, I had literally just lost my son. My only child was gone. I was still trying to dry up my breast milk. I was still crying pretty much 24 hours a day when I wasn't asleep or dissociated. My marriage was just ending, I was facing having to date again as a postpartum mom, and I was still living in the haunted house where I found my son dead. I was having to face finding a new apartment. I was having to face filing for divorce. We hadn't even met yet, you and me. And now I am in a serious relationship. I have my own apartment that I am happy living in. I have a plan for having more children, even if the exact timeline is unknown. But so like I look at that and I can say I've come very far. But that said, like the day to day, minute to minute, like sometimes feels like I'm right back in the beginning. Truly.
And what can you paint a picture of what you think the end goal would look like? Like paint a picture of when you're like, okay, I'm normal.
I think normal, the end goal would be, I was going to say married again, not necessarily married again, but like partnered again, which I am. And maybe in a permanent house, because I'm still in an apartment, in a permanent place where I know I'm not going to move, and with a living child. Like, I think that would feel like, once I have my own little family unit again, I feel like that would feel like happier ever after. Isn't that exactly what I said in the like first episode of this podcast?
I actually think it is. And as I was sitting here reflecting on what I would say for myself about what my end goal looks like, I think I would say the exact same thing that I would say then. But I can see how I'm so much closer now than I was then. And it sounds like to me, you are also much closer. Like maybe you're like 70% of the way there. I'll tell you why. You're partnered. You're on track to do IVF in the next 6 months. You know, so a baby would be in the next year or two, like in an actual tangible way. Also, like I know that you guys have looked at houses, and financially you could have a house, and you know where you want to live, and you know what kind of house you guys want to live in. So it's kind of like you guys are definitely like, if you wanted to, you could be homed in 6 months, not even. So and you're partnered with someone that you plan to be with the rest of your life. So all of those key pieces, which before felt so nebulous, are really in play in a real tangible way. Like I actually think that you're close. I mean, you're close.
Yeah.
Like I actually think you're 75% of the way there.
It's like I still have to put the puzzle pieces together, but like I have the puzzle pieces and I know I have the picture of the front of the box, like what it's going to look like. Yeah. Whereas before it was like I just had like a pile of ash. Like I didn't have any puzzle pieces. I didn't know what the box looked like. Like I didn't know what I was even working toward. And now I do feel like I still have to work to do,
but I do feel like if you think about it from the big picture, you are so much closer to that dream now.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that this is a good perspective shift for me to have, because I have been really, to be honest, like dwelling recently on not having a living child in my arms. Like we had a conversation last week on the podcast about why me. And I think I don't go to why me, why did my child die? But I do sometimes go to more frequently, why me, why did I not get to try again after I lost my baby? Because that feels completely unnecessary, like an unnecessary level of pain on top of it. But the truth is, it's almost like as it's getting closer and more real, the idea of having a child again, like as the timeline is becoming more crystallized, it's almost more painful that it's 6, 8, 10, 12 months away than it was in the early days where I was like, I don't know when it'll be me. It could be any time. You know what I mean? Like it's almost harder now. So it's nice to have this perspective to be able to take a minute to step back and be like, I am actually so much closer to all these things that I want than I was before, even though sometimes it feels further away. Yeah.
To me, it feels a year away. It feels a year away. And And that feels good. I remember when Aiden first died, I was talking to my friend Miriam that you guys all met. And Miriam, and just like there was bad news everywhere. Bad news, bad news, bad news. And I remember telling her, like, well, what would be good news? Like, let's list out all the things that would be good news. So maybe we can like pay attention when it does happen. And we like wrote out a list of things. Actually, you and I did the same exercise, but she and I did this exercise first. And every single thing that we had laid out that day came true. Every single thing. It's just that it didn't feel like good news in the moment it actually happened because there was so much bad news still clouding it. But I do feel like sometimes we need to have that perspective of like good things are also happening. It just happens to be the shit is so much right now. It's hard to see, but good things are happening. And all those little good things hopefully will bring us to where our dream goals are. And in terms of where that podcast is, like it is possible that our podcast has only like a year left. You know, if we both feel in a year from now that like our lives are ordinary and we have nothing to say.
God, wouldn't that be incredible?
It would be. It would be. The purpose of this podcast was never to go on forever. The point was to tell like a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I feel like we're in the meaty middle, but we're in the meaty middle. And I wouldn't even say that bad things won't happen in the future. I think they will, but I do think they'll be their own book of bad. Right now, it feels like I'm still in this Aiden died book. You know, I will start new books where things go bad and go wrong. Yeah, so that's kind of where my head is in terms of that.
So wait, what about you? Like, tell us about what percent toward happier ever after are you?
Okay, I remember when we had originally spoken about this, I had said something like, I want to wake up in the morning, feel safe in my home, like this feels like my home. Like my husband and I both go to work. I have alive children that go to daycare, wherever they go, whatever they do during the day. And then we all come home at the end of the day and we're all still alive. And I wake up in the morning the next day and the exact same thing happens over and again. And that we're both living in the same place. We're all alive. We have a home. We have jobs and life just feels steady. And when I think about like my sister's life or people around me's life, I don't think they realize how lucky they are because I don't think they realize like my dream is just to have that. No huge change, no fundamental change in life, like where I'm living, in what I'm doing, and in like my children's life. Just living life, you know, that to me would be like happier ever after. And I have to also add that like part of it that I didn't articulate then because I didn't know, but part of it is to have like my husband and I be engaged parents and enjoy having a family. And my husband has been going through such an intense grieving period this past year. I think we're just starting to enjoy being a family in a way that we haven't been for the past 9 months. We're just starting to be able to do that. And so for the first time, that feels like it's a puzzle piece that's on the table. That like my husband and I can both enjoy being parents and be both participants without one of us going through a mental health crisis at all times. And then another thing is, I don't think I spoke about this on the podcast yet, but I did on Monday when we first recorded this, was that my husband was let go. Like so many people's husbands were, or wives, I don't know. Like so many people were let go because of all this like tech layoffs and the economy and whatever. And because of the nature in which he was let go in his last job relating to Aiden's death, it definitely feels very triggering mentally. It doesn't just feel like a layoff. It just feels like this is a continuation of like the shaken confidence and the uncertainty that we had when Aiden died. It just, even though we're not in the same place, and I try and remind myself we're not in the same place, not mentally, whatever, it feels very much so like not like instability. I don't feel safe in my home because of that, because we can't afford it long term without his salary. So I don't really, I can imagine a world in which I do feel home and safe and like we're going to live here for a long time and comfortable. I can imagine a world in which I do feel like we all wake up in the morning, go to work, my kid goes to whatever she goes to, and then we come home and have dinner together. And like, I can imagine a world. It's definitely like within arm's reach, but we're not there yet because of this job financial component.
And the ongoing grief, the ongoing acute grief in your home, because you pretty much, we talked about this in the podcast, your husband is basically going through what we went through in the first year. He's going through it in the second year. And I'm guessing this is common in marriages when partnerships are grieving together. One person kind of hits it first, one person hits it second.
Yes. Well, the sad dad said that. Remember the sad dad? I don't remember which one. Maybe Chris. Chris had said that he didn't start grieving until 18 months after his loss. And my husband didn't start really grieving, until my daughter was born. That was like, I don't know, a time. A year and a bit, 12 months, 13 months after our loss. That's when he really started grieving. Like, couldn't get out of bed. Like the things that we were lying on the floor, just complete upheaval in terms of like who you are as a person, what you actually want out of life, like complete lost his ability to function. Like we did. We lost our executive functioning skills, and he did as well. The difference is now we have a kid when we before didn't. We have an alive kid, and so there's a lot of responsibilities in our home. So I would say that, yeah, part of it that I didn't articulate before was that both my partner and I are in the same mental place of wanting to live, wanting to engage in our community, wanting to be the life that we had before. Of course, slightly different, but a version of the life we were in terms of like being involved in life itself, attending functions, or even seeing friends, or hosting whatever it is. My husband hasn't been able to do that because he's been grieving. So yeah, I feel like I'm closer, but I don't feel like I'm there. But I definitely feel like it's within reach. Like it feels a year away. For me, it feels a year away.
Wow. A year away.
A year away.
Maybe we're like in the middle. The first episode of this podcast was called The Bottom. Maybe we're in the middle.
But I would almost say we're like past the midway point. Like if we were going from New York to Los Angeles and we started in New York, we're heading to the sunshine, like where would you say we are? Like maybe over Denver?
Judith, I'm so bad at geography, I can't answer this question.
That didn't help at all? Not helpful? Okay, never mind. But it was a good analogy for those of you who know where Denver is.
Like where's like, yeah, like Texas? Do you
maybe
go over
Kansas?
Texas when you're flying to California? Sure.
No,
I don't know.
don't.
Where's in the middle? I'm so bad at geography.
Kansas is in the middle. It goes kind of like Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, Colorado, Nevada. So basically,
we're in Colorado.
So Colorado, then you go, I think maybe to Arizona, Nevada, Los Angeles. So we're about, this is just my gut, 20 hours of driving away.
I can do this. Couple of McDonald's rest stops, couple of bathroom stops left. We can do this, Judith.
Okay, so given a life update. Okay, you were sick. You just had Quinn's death anniversary.
Yes, life update in general. I feel like it's been probably one of my worst grieving weeks surrounding the second death anniversary. The death anniversary itself was kind of passed without fanfare. I made it through the day without really too much emotion or being overwhelmed or anything. But then the next day, I don't know what happened. It was like all the grief kind of washed over me. And I had to work a lot this past week, which fucking sucked. Like I had this whole plan to take the time off I needed and blah, 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 blah. And then, shit happened, life happened, and I wound up having to work more than I was expecting. And I really think it affected me. I did not have the space I needed, the time I needed to grieve. And then, I don't know, it was just really hard. Something that was interesting was that last death anniversary, I spent a lot of time I didn't deliberately spend this amount of time, but I wound up having a lot of time spent in flashbacks to the day of his death, which are things that I've deliberately processed in EMDR and in therapy. But this year at his death anniversary, I was feeling kind of consumed with flashbacks to the early days of the loss, which was different. I feel like I haven't really processed that time, those early weeks. And if you are new to the loss and just finding our podcast, you know what I'm talking about. Like just it's very physical those early days. Like your arms feel so empty. Your brain is so foggy. The smells, the sounds like of our stale house, how fucking silent it was everywhere. I was saying last night to my boyfriend that when we turned off the baby monitor and that like light static sound of the baby monitor was off for the first time in months, that was like deafeningly quiet. So those are the kinds of things I've been thinking about this week. And in some ways, I can't believe he's been gone 2 years. And in other ways, like it feels like it's been 10 years, it feels like it's been 10 minutes and 10 years. What else do I have going on? My boyfriend moved in. That's a good thing that's happened. It's been really fun having him here. Things are going great. We're interviewing him for the podcast next week. We keep like teasing that, but it's happening for real. I have like my IVF process is underway in that I actually just got an email from the lab that's generating the probe to find this gene that Quinn had that I don't want to pass down to other kids. So that is all in process, targeting an IVF egg retrieval in like March or April. And yeah, I have my last heart related test next week. I have my exercise tolerance test, which I'm looking forward to and kind of nervous about because this is the big one to determine if I'm like a normal person or if I have a bad heart. So everything else has been so far so good. And I'm hoping this one will go well also. But I don't know.
That's a lot.
Did I miss anything?
You're going on a vacation for the first time since COVID, I think. This is like the first time you're going on a vacation.
Yes, I am. I'm going on my very first vacation since COVID. I mean, I guess I've driven to the beach in Massachusetts where I live, or like Maine, but this is my boyfriend and I are going to Canada for the weekend, next weekend, and I'm very excited about it.
I personally think it's insane to go to Canada in the middle of winter. I literally think you're clinically insane. I would pick anywhere else, but you guys want to go.
It's going to be 3. It's like the high is like 3 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, like I don't understand what you were thinking.
I don't mind the cold though. We're just going to bundle up. It's the winter festival. We're going to Quebec City. We're going to have fun. We're going to like go tubing. We're going to have fun. I'm excited. Okay.
It'll be great. I remember my husband, he grew up in Canada, and he would be like, it was negative 20 in the winter.
Yeah, it's going to be
cold. I feel like it's going to be cold. But you guys live in Boston, so it's like, it's cold there too. It's really cold there.
Yeah.
I feel like you and I have always discussed, you were trying to convince me to move to Boston, and I kept saying it was so cold, and you're like, it's the same. And every time it's not the same, I feel like I have to point it out. It's 45 degrees here. And it's like,
I do think it's like 10 degrees warmer where you are. Yeah.
I actually think that's true. And I think that New York is 5 degrees colder than where we live.
Well, all right. Tell us about your life. What's going on with you?
Let's see what's going on with my life. What is going on with my life? My mother. So my parents got divorced. And for the past year, my mom has been kind of like living between my house and my sister's house and traveling and going to Europe and going out to California and doing all sorts of things. And so yesterday she bought a house, or a condo, I should say. And she's very excited about that. But I don't know why I feel this way, but I really feel like because of Aiden's death, it put into play this new phase of like family living near each other. I don't know. I'm sure she would say that's not what it is, but I think that is, because this past week my in-laws also moved 2 hours away from Canada because my father-in-law got a job opportunity in America. And so they moved 2 hours away. I mean, my husband and I have been living like in a different country from his parents for, 10, 12 years. So the idea that having like both sides within driving distance to me is absolutely bananas. And I really genuinely do believe that this is all kind of like from this shift that happens when Aiden died. That's my impression. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. But I do think that it kind of like kicks your butt into gear where you look around and you're like, why am I doing this? So there's been that. And I spoke about my husband earlier, but my husband's made a lot of progress in terms of his grief. And it actually reminded me of our grief. Like, I definitely feel, I remember when Aiden first died, I was on the phone with this woman who had her loss like 20 years ago. She lost to centicids, and she called me, and I said to her, like, when does it get better? I was like, break it down for me. When does it get better? And she was like, I remember her specifically saying that the first month, and then she said, and then at 9 months, there was a real shift. I remember that, and I actually think that's true for you and me.
Yes.
Because that was when I moved here to my new home, and there was definitely a shift. And what about for you? What was 9 months out for you? August.
Yeah. 9 months was when I moved into my own place. Like, that definitely was a shift.
You started dating a little bit.
Yep.
9 months was definitely a shift. And so my husband is 9 months out from, I guess, the beginning of his real grief.
Yep.
And I've seen a huge shift in this past week, 2 weeks, in this past month. And so I really feel like if you're in the beginning stages of your grief, or if you are now watching your partner grieve and you're in the secondary stages of grief, I would say that 9 months, 9 months is a shift. I would say the first shift happened for 1 month. The second shift happened August, so like 6 months. And then the biggest shift for me happened at 9 months. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like I've been pretty much the same since a year. I feel that way. What do you think?
Yeah. I would agree with that, actually. I would agree with that. Well, I do think I've done a lot of rebuilding in the past year.
I do too.
So in year two. But I don't know. I think probably over the last 6 months, I don't know that I've done a ton of healing, if that makes sense.
I agree. And my therapist did say, and you're going to hear from her. We're recording with her on Sunday, by the way. You have it on your calendar, right?
Yeah.
No. Okay. My therapist did say that after 2 years is a big turning point. And you and I are just on the 2-year mark. And so I would be curious in this next, like maybe the reason that we feel like this next year has hope in it is because we hit the 2-year mark. Maybe we are, as she said, through the first tunnel. She said the first tunnel is at 2 years, the second tunnel is at 5 years. And I believe it. It is possible that you and we did do, those first 2 years were horrible, as everyone said, but then there was hope in year 3.
Yeah. That would be good. I'll take it.
Another exciting piece of news is that I'm getting a promotion.
Yeah, you are getting a promotion.
That is exciting. And I know, and what's exciting to me is that I care. Because I did not care about my job for so long. And that was really out of character for me because I genuinely do care about my work. And so I'm so excited to care.
That's so sweet. It is different. Do you remember when I came to visit you in January of last year? So that was when each of us was about 1 year out from the loss. And we decorated your daughter's nursery. And I remember the two of us were like obsessed with like what lamp was going to fit in the bedroom. And we both looked at each other and were like, oh my God, we care about lamps. And that was like a huge shift because I think for so many months and months and months, it was like, you don't even care. Like I would just like sit down on the floor sometimes because I was tired. Like I didn't even care whether my butt was on a chair or on the floor, like I would just be like collapsing. And then it was like, we cared about the visual appeal of one lamp versus another. Like
I totally agree. Agree.
Yeah.
And I do.
We're in the middle plus.
We're in the middle plus. We're flying over Denver.
That's what we're doing. We can do this. We got it.
Don't say that. Bad things happen all the time.
Listen, is anything wow, I was about to say something that was going to really cause the universe to do some bad shit. I was going to say we can handle it because we've handled the worst. I
think that is true.
Yeah.
I do think we've handled the worst. And I don't think that we set out to record such an uplifting episode, but I genuinely do think it's important to take stock of where we are. And I even had not prepared this thought process, but I even myself have been afraid to say, oh, I'm doing okay now. Like there have been times when people are like, how are you? And I'm like, I'm doing well. And I mean it. And then I'm afraid to say that out loud because I'm so afraid. I know that you can fall so quickly. So I think the best way for me to say I'm okay is to say it like I just did and spoke for 30 minutes about how is context.
With the nuance.
With the nuance.
Hi everyone, it's Judith here. We recorded the episode flying over Denver like 10 hours ago, maybe more. And ever since we recorded it, I just had this like creepy sinking feeling that like I'm going to jinx myself. We were too optimistic. We were too hopeful. We were too close to Denver. And then I panicked. And I was like, and now I'm telling the universe to send bad news. And then I was like, in a year, here I am saying things could be good. But I also am acutely aware that in a year from now, everyone could die. I could be diagnosed with some horrible illness. And then I panicked that I would jinx it for me, for Alina, for all of us. And so I kind of wanted to take back everything we said because this is what it's like to live after loss. You just can't be too confident in the good. Anyway, I've thought more about my analogy and I'm freaked out about being so close to our destination. And so I feel like we're more like flying over Mars. Like if we were journeying towards the sun, we're not over Denver. We're probably like close to Mars. So I guess I don't know if that's better or worse, but I think this is just the realest, truest thing that anyone could say after living through such crisis. So we're hopeful, but not that hopeful. We're hopeful, but afraid of being hopeful. And that's where we are.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.